Welcome, you guys, everybody that's hopping in. We're gonna get started here in a couple minutes. We'll just let some other people hop on as well. All right, and for those of you guys that are already in, if you don't mind in the chat, just dropping your name and then position and school district that you guys represent, just for a quick greeting. All right, we'll give it one more minute, and get everybody in, and then get started with our presentation. All right, I think we got enough to get started here. We're going to do a couple quick introductions. My name is Garrett Russell, and I am one of the attendance specialists here at USBE. I've been here about a year and love working on attendance. So we really appreciate that you guys came. I'm going to pass it over to my colleague as well to introduce herself.
Good morning. My name's Megan Munlove. I'm also one of the attendance specialists here at USBE. I've only been here a few months, but I'm excited to be here and to work with you guys. And yeah, thanks for coming and joining us.
And this is the first attendance webinar that we've put on as a USB attendance team. So we're really ecstatic that you guys all showed up. You're never 100% sure if you're going to get like two people the first time or a whole bunch. So we're really pumped that we have 36 and counting people that are excited to talk about attendance with us today. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. And for those of you guys that are just popping in, if you want to just drop your name, the district that you're representing, and position as well, that'll be a good greeting. All right. So our topic today is increasing student attendance. And a lot of this is going to be introducing some of the work that we're doing at USB, as well as the work that other LEAs are doing around the state. And then we do have a special guest that's going to share some of the things that they've been working on that is impacting their attendance as well. So we'll talk about supports to LEAs, like I said, best practices that we're seeing around Utah. Murray School District is our guest, and then some next steps and additional resources. And we will have a Q&A at the end. So if you guys have questions, please wait till the end. You can also drop them in the chat. We have people monitoring that as well. So our supports to LEAs right now. We have a cohort. It is called Engagement and Attendance. This is a yearly cohort, and the engagement and attendance learning cohorts engage in a focus on sustainable attendance systems and implementation. The focus of each cohort changes each year depending on the individual needs. But the overall layout, the first year of our cohort is developing an attendance team at the district, or if it's a charter school, charter level, building attendance systems, creating consistent stakeholder messaging that goes out to all stakeholders in the school and the school community, and then looking at data and making sure that we have accurate data so that we can accurately track attendance, and developing MTSS structures, tier 1, 2, and 3, that are going to help address our chronic absenteeism and assist students that have extra needs as well. And then our year 2 takes that same work and develops stakeholder surveys to get input, community engagement. If it is an LEA or a charter that has additional schools, pushing into pilot schools to take that top-down district mentality into the school setting, and then developing an attendance campaign and initiatives, and further developing the MTSS structure at the school level instead of just the district level as well. We have just started a attendance monthly newsletter, which you guys have all probably seen from Megan Menlove. We're sending out information to LEA attendance leads monthly with important updates, current research and articles that are coming out, and then sharing Utah success stories from the field with those schools and LEAs that we're working with. If you're not receiving these as the attendance lead, please reach out to Megan. Her email is right here, and it'll also be at the end of our presentation as well. At USB, we are helping expand Check and Connect for prevention. Check and Connect originally started in Utah as a YIC, so Youth in Care program, and now we actually have more mentors statewide on the prevention side than YIC. It is a tier 2 evidence-based mentoring program that helps identify at-risk students based on their ABCs, which is attendance, behavior, and course performance. At USB, we've accepted the contract with Check and Connect so that we're able to provide all training and all materials for free. We aren't able to pay for all mentors, so that is a kind of the LEA's process of getting that. But then we have training opportunities throughout. If you have any questions about starting a prevention program for Check and Connect, please email myself, garrett.russell@schools.utah.gov. And then we'll try to get you onboarded and any information you need to start that program as well. So kind of the highlight, the best practices we're seeing in Utah right now. In Utah, LEAs are doing incredible work to curb chronic absenteeism and working with students and families to re-engage in schools. A lot of LEAs that we're working with are developing community resources and a community resource map. And research in the field is showing that this is the #1 thing that is moving attendance in a positive direction. Connecting schools to resources throughout the community can promote positive attendance conversations with a variety of stakeholders, and it also helps to address barriers and build trust with families and the school. District level and LEA level and school level attendance teams, there should be multiple stakeholders from various departments and even community representatives as you're expanding. And this allows to get different input and also address all the different barriers at that district and school level so that you can have a continuous attendance program from the district all the way down to the school level. And then another awesome win that we're seeing in Utah is having tier 1 attendance meetings, at least an hour total. You can look at that as a monthly or a bi-monthly or even a weekly meeting, but adding up to an hour total with an agenda and action items that are being worked on with assignments given across the team members. And this keeps the attendance work moving forward with specific goals that actually can be reached, and you can see the progress through the attendance system as well. We're seeing attendance specialists at the district and school level to provide top-down support and dissemination of information and resources. We're reaching out to district and charter leads on attendance who are then able to send that information down to their school level teams as well. And that also just supports the attendance system all the way across the board at the district. So if a student's leaving one school to another or moving from elementary to junior to high school, they're having the same communication, the same expectations, and the same procedures as well. And then consistent stakeholder messaging. LEAs are starting to send out monthly communications specific to attendance, identifying goals, data, current campaigns, the impact on missed days, creating how sick is too sick, especially now that we're in that cold and flu season here in the winter. And then just highlighting the importance of being in the seat to get that education time from a teacher. We're starting to see stakeholder surveys as well that are gauging the climate around attendance and helping address barriers to attendance specific and LEA school level surveys that are being conducted across that, trying to figure out district wide and school wide what those barriers can be. MTSS structures are being developed and modified, looking at Tier 1 universal practices for all students. Tier 1 is the most important area and also tied highly to learning loss. So those students in that 5 to 10% category of chronic absenteeism actually have a higher percentage of learning loss than the students that are 10% or more. And so really focusing on that Tier 1 universal practice all the way around. And then looking at developing Tier 2 targeted supports for at-risk students, as well as Tier 3 intensive supports, which is more family-based and student individualized based as well. LEAs are revising their policy and procedures. Policies should be revised every 5 years to make sure that they're current. And we're finding that a lot of LEAs have not done this post-COVID, where we've had a lot of changes. And so as we continue to work across the state, we're getting revised policies and procedures that are more up to date and are more relevant post-COVID. And then procedures that help stakeholders access and understand those policies and expectations. Another thing that we're seeing that is awesome is attendance matrices that help identify the steps and who is responsible for them while handling attendance. So deciding after three absences, does a teacher make a phone call? 5 absences, the school sends a friendly letter home, all the way up to those compulsory ed and truancy notifications. And that helps families know when they're receiving them, and also the teachers know when they're fitting into that role as well. We've had schools that are hosting family engagement nights, and they're bringing identified families of at-risk for attendance students in, and they're utilizing their teachers, paras. There's even some schools that are using lunch ladies and playground monitors to come in and have those conversations and develop attendance plans. And then also having that follow-up with those families, and they're seeing great improvement in attendance just because it's across the board. They're bringing families in, talking about the barriers, talking about the impacts of attendance, and then education loss as well based on attendance. And we have a lot of districts that are starting to make things a little bit more interactive with family education videos and then even in-person classes as well, where after a student reaches a certain attendance level, their families are offered a course to learn about attendance impacts, the supports that are available through the district, and then developing ideas for improvement and strategies for parents as well, especially at that elementary level, knowing that it is really developing a skill set for a parent versus creating that plan for that student. These have been really beneficial. Research is showing that teachers being the first contact for parents is the most important. That is the trusted adult. And so we have LEAs that are supporting teachers with attendance conversations by developing scripts and times during the day to call, whether that's on an early release day versus having to make those phone calls every single day, depending on how many students they have. And then they're also helping teachers through professional development to understand the process and explain where they fit in to the attendance matrix and why so that we have more teacher buy-in as we're developing our attendance supports as well. All right, so really quickly, we're going to hop into a couple breakout rooms. We're going to get about 5 people per breakout room. In these breakout rooms, if we could get you to discuss, does your LEA have an LEA or charter level attendance team, and what departments and staff are represented on it? And then the second question is, what is your attendance messaging strategy to reach all stakeholders in your school environment? And I will leave these questions up and also just copy and paste them into the chat as well so that you guys can have them.
Hello.
Hey Jim, your mic is open.
Oh,
Oh, sorry, I realized I was muted. Did anybody have any ahas from your breakout room that you would like to share whole group before we move on to our next section? Not seeing any hands. I did know, like in our group, we did have um, a lot of messaging going out, especially like through Duchesne, even in movie theaters, posters, banners. So just really sharing that. I thought that was an awesome highlight. And then also kind of discussing barriers for smaller charters that don't necessarily have the same amount of resources as a larger LEA and trying to come up with solutions to help charters out as well. All right, I'm going to hop over. And we are going to have Murray School District share some of the things that they're working on that are awesome.
Hi, I'm going to have our team all introduce themselves before we start diving into the content, but I'm Sierra Marsh. I'm the Prevention and YC Coordinator for the district.
Darren Dean, Student Services Director.
I'm Erin Adams. I'm a mentor and an attendance specialist.
I'm Brittany Roller, one of the attendance specialists.
I'm Gelsey Worldton. I'm a BSW student doing my internship.
And we have several folks actually on the call that are not in the room with us that we've noticed are part of our team as well that I want to shout out to. So Emily Bird is on the call from Murray High, and Jill Burnside is on the call from Grant Elementary. They are both part of our district-wide team around attendance as well. And we have some of our administration from Riverview Junior High. So thanks for being here, y'all, and supporting us. So we're just going to talk a little bit about a couple of the things that we've really explored over the year and a half that we've been focusing on attendance. And this is not an exhaustive list. There's so many things that we've really been working on. And I will just say it's taken a lot of people and just that teaming approach to see results that we've seen. So I'm just going to speak to a little bit of the landscape. And then our attendance specialist will dive into some of the practice that we've been doing. So district-wide, we have a big push at attendance right now. It's part of our comprehensive prevention plan over the next now, I guess, 4 years to improve our attendance a few percentage points every year. And we are slightly behind in our goal, but we did make a lot of progress last year, which we were excited about. Our board is very involved. And so Mr. Dean reports out to our Board of Education every month on how attendance is going. We meet as a district attendance team monthly as well. So it includes everybody at this table, plus several principals and all of our mentors from all of our schools. And then we have this team meets weekly to review our data, to work on our campaigns, and to discuss all of the different initiatives that we have going on. At a school level, we have our district or our attendance mentors at our 3 secondary schools, which has been very helpful to make sure there is consistent work happening in attendance related initiatives and supporting the school level teams. We are working on increasing our funding. So right now, most of our attendance related funding comes out of the Prevention Block Grant through USBE. We're really grateful that they have funded this initiative for us so that we can hire incredible folks to do the work in our buildings. And we also have some district funding that we use to support our mentors at a school level that are doing the Check and Connect program that Garrett mentioned earlier in the call. And over the last year and a half, we did a lot of work, especially in our first year, working with USBE around policy and procedure and getting all of that updated so that it reflects current state code, and also the efforts that we've seen from evidence-based practices. And procedurally, Garrett mentioned kind of those intervention matrices and flow charts. We've put a lot of those together to define out roles for teachers, school building principals, and then at what point our district gets involved and what we do on that end. And before our team dives into a lot of these data-driven decisions we've made, I wanted to highlight a couple of things that we're working on that are not on this list that just have come to my mind. The stakeholder surveys, we did a lot of work last year to get input from our faculty and staff, also our parents and our students. We had really an incredible response in our surveys, which have helped to guide a lot of the efforts we have been making. But we're also using data to guide our decisions around our policy. So we recently looked at data on economically disadvantaged students and chronic absenteeism. So like how many of our chronically absent students are on free and reduced lunch, so that we had a really clear picture of that impact at various schools and across the district. But we're also looking at our chronically absent students that are potentially just outside of a busing route, distance away from school, or just inside of a busing route, and how is that impacting those students in those areas. So that's been really, really fun to work on with a team of people. So I'm going to turn the time over to Brittany and Erin.
So going along with that, with last year being our first year, we're really diving into this. We have a lot more data now from that. And so besides the things Sierra talked about, which are really important, there's also some fun things we're trying to do is making our initiatives kind of data driven. And so one of the things we did in November, we realized last year and this year again, probably like a lot of your schools, that Friday is by far our lowest attended day throughout the district. And so for one of the initiatives we did, we tried to do it on a Friday, which helped us to be able to kind of get it out in a fun way. It's the football posters you see up there when it was the BYU versus Utah game. And where the kids had to show up on time to be able to vote for their team and to see who could win district-wide. And if everybody in the school, their class was there and on time, they were in a drawing to get Crumbl cookies delivered to their class that day. So it was pretty fun, it's pretty exciting. And we're also able to use that opportunity to get some information out to the parents and staff more along the lines of Fridays and why it's important, all that kind of stuff. And that alone, we did find out that comparing to all the Fridays of last year in November versus that Friday, the attendance went up by 1.55%, which was pretty huge for our school district to go up that far. So it did make us, a small impact, but it was pretty cool just to kind of see that. That's one way.
Yep. And then another thing that we're doing is we have a couple pilot schools that we're working with. One's an elementary and one's a secondary. And we're just going into those schools to figure out exactly how we can help them and what would work for their particular school in increasing attendance. So we're just working on some strategies, things like that. What we have noticed though is being in the schools, it's been really eye-opening to see the challenges that each school has and what limitations are kind of in place, and how it's just difficult because not everybody at each school has one specific staff that can work on just attendance alone, which in a perfect world would be great, but we don't have that. So we're doing the best that we can to help them kind of come up with things that will work specifically for their school. And if those things work well, then we will implement them into our other schools.
We also are trying to find more, as it says, evidence-based practices. We put together the bottom picture on here is a menu for our elementary specifically, to kind of give them ideas of things that have worked, whether we've heard them through meetings with you guys for different LEAs throughout the school district or throughout Utah, and also just in schools here in our own district, where they've found little things that actually did seem to make an impact, and kind of just all in one little spot for them to kind of flip through to get ideas and hopefully help them to be able to put some of those things out there that actually have worked in the past. And it's got research in it too of why we chose the ones we did and things like that to go along with it. And also, I don't think it's on here, but the top picture there is a calendar, which Sierra was awesome in helping us create, that we made for every student in the whole school district to put on their fridge. It's just the calendar of the school year, but on the very top is a little spot where they can kind of keep track of their absences, and it'll help to see where they're at. We're in the green or, yellow or red area, and it has a little description on top of what that means for their education.
We also host a class monthly. It's our Attendance Matters class. And we've actually used our magnets at this class and had the kids check off the days that they've been absent. And it's kind of eye-opening, even them sitting in that meeting, realizing how many absences they actually have. So for our class, we invite a lot of the chronic absentee people, whatever that word would be. But we have noticed that even just inviting the elementary students, it increases their attendance about 68%. So even if they don't show up, just the invitation to the class is huge and helps their parents realize that, oh, okay, I probably need to work harder to get the kids to school. And then for the high school, with the kids that came to the class, they've increased their attendance about 65%. And that's been beneficial for them too, in getting their grades up and also making it to school. So.
And Garrett mentioned that one of the most effective ways that we've seen in moving the needle around attendance is connecting families to resources. So I don't know, Garrett, if you want to click on that link, community mapping, and just show this is totally a resource that anyone could utilize or just check out, and not exhaustive. There's still so much that I want to be able to add to this program. And I think I'm in here multiple times a week to update it, but we just try to have a space where we can list resources and get the information out to families. So we plethora, whatever might be going on for a family or a student, and have some resources available. One of the cool things about this website is that it is possible to translate the page into a number of languages. So that has made it pretty convenient for a lot of families just to get connected to local resources if they might not be super familiar with what is available, or if they're new to the country or things like that. It's been impactful for them. And I want to invite Emily Bird or Jill Burnside, again, members of our district attendance team. If there's anything you guys want to highlight, they've both been incredibly helpful. Jill at Grant Elementary has just blown it away with all of the work she's doing around attendance. So I'd love to invite them to come off and speak to anything you guys have seen impactful in your buildings. They might be shy.
No, I'll speak to things at the high school. It's been really helpful for us to have activities that maybe correspond with things happening in elementary schools, but that are also appropriate and motivating for high school students, such as the U of U BYU game. The March Madness was really fun. It's kind of tricky making some of these activities that work for elementary applicable to the high school, but I think our team has done a really good job of bridging that gap.
And so just to provide some additional information, that March Madness that Emily was referring to is like a district-wide competition around attendance. Last year was our first year doing that in March, and we used February data, and we were just looking for improvement in our schools, and schools that made the most improvement would kind of win in their bracket and move on. This year, we're deciding on exactly what data we're going to compare it to. If we're going to compare it to March of 2024 data and see if schools can improve from that this year, or if we're going to combine January and February data. We noticed that last year, one of our schools maybe was on a on a
Had an advantage.
had an advantage because there was a big sickness that went through the school in February, and so their attendance status was pretty low. And then they were able to make it up in March, and another school got really sick. So we're kind of playing with what makes the most sense for that. But the schools, students, communities all really responded to that. Actually, this BYU Utah thing came from that too, because we had some students that are familiar with one of our board members in their neighborhood that really love football. Like they don't love basketball, wasn't their favorite, love football. And so they said, where are we gonna do like a football themed competition? And so that came out of this. So we're really fortunate to have board members on our district attendance team as well that are really active in our community and help that communication with our schools. So if there's any, I mean, we're open to questions. And I think I saw in the chat that someone said, like, can you share the menu? And I think we can totally share that PDF out. We can share that with Garrett and Megan, and maybe they can send it out to everyone else.
Awesome. If anybody has any questions directly for Murray, go ahead and you can raise your hand in the chat or come off mute. I think I see that Kelly has her hand raised. If you want to go ahead, Kelly.
Hi, thanks. I was just wondering if you could also maybe share your policy or share that to Garrett and he could email it out. I'm redoing our policy and would love to see a good example of an updated one.
Yeah, we'll share all of that information with Garrett and Megan.
Thank you.
Yeah.
We at Mountain Sunrise would love any help with policies as well. So if there's some sort of like email that goes out, would be so helpful.
Yeah, once the recording's done and we get the slides approved, we'll kind of collaborate resources. So it might not come out immediately today right after, but we'll get everything put together and send it out on to that attendance contact list that we have for everybody.
I think I missed the part on the magnet. Can you address that again, what you do with the magnets?
Yeah, so we last year had some funds available that we used to create these magnets that we gave out to every student. So the bottom portion of the magnet is just kind of your standard school year calendar. I will say families, it's been kind of fun to point out, like, oh, did you notice that it's only the days in white on that calendar that you come to school, and comparatively, you know, like all the weekends in gray and all these other colors that represent breaks and stuff. They're like, oh, we're actually not in school very much. That's kind of wild. But it's that very top part of the magnet that we added. So there's the green, it's kind of an orange, and then a red section at the top. So we just created spaces for students to mark out their absences so that as a family, they could actually track how quickly their absences were adding up, right? If they were in that green zone, they were kind of just like your typical absences that you might expect in the school year, right? Maybe some vacation, some sick days, things like that. And then this orange bracket around at risk, like we got to be mindful. And then, oh my gosh, we missed a lot of school. And then underneath it, and we can maybe send a PDF of this too with our resources, just so you can see, we just have a little blurb about how absences can impact students, not just academically, but like what are the outcomes of missing school often.
Okay, thank you. That was helpful. For secondary, are you tracking period absences and all-day absences?
Yes, we are. And second, so this particular magnet went out to just our junior highs and our elementary schools, because the high school does A days and B days. So they have their own calendar, but they did add this like tracking of absences on their calendar as well.
Okay, thanks.
Thanks.
And I was wondering, for your monthly attendance matters class, utilizing this magnet, who's teaching that class?
Us. We are. We put together our class kind of structure. It does have some education around the impact of attendance. But we knew from our stakeholder survey that most of our families knew that attendance was important. It was just addressing all of the barriers or underlying challenges to getting their kiddos to school. And so we went through and adjusted our class. We pulled in a lot of motivational interviewing components as well. And so the class is really very solution oriented. And very interactive between the student and the adults that are with them. We have all of our attendance matters or our attendance mentors attend. We have social workers attend in our buildings as well, so that they can come and support students and their families in kind of conversations around why are we really struggling to get to school? What are some goals we want to set around attendance, but also just general life skill goals? And how can we support the progress, right? What are the barriers that are going to get in the way? When I come to a barrier or when I'm not really succeeding in this goal, what am I going to do? How am I going to handle that? We talk about some incentives, right? What is going to motivate you to achieve this goal? And so we all take parts of the class. I have some motivational interviewing and social work background, so I take on that part. And it's a good time.
We feed them snacks.
Yeah.
We have coloring pages for kids.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, I just want to say thank you, Murray, for sharing. As we continue the series going forward, hopefully we're able to call out to some more of you to share some of the things you're all working on, so we all get great ideas from you as well. And thanks for continuing the attendance work. You guys rock, and we appreciate you. Our next steps that we're going to be looking at are things that we're doing at USBE to continue moving attendance forward. So right now we are in our final revision process for a statewide attendance toolkit that we'll be releasing in the spring to the beginning of the summer timeframe to support LEAs for the start of the 25-26 school year. We have a cohort of schools and school leaders that are helping us develop this, as well as like cross-departmentally at USBE as well. And we are also currently working on a statewide attendance campaign to help support LEA's attendance growth goals with multiple stakeholders around the state. If you would like some more information or even want to help participate in that, feel free to email myself or Megan Menlove. We're always looking for other great ideas and stakeholders that we can reach out to as well. And then we are going to be partnering with LEAs across Utah that are leading in attendance work to continue to highlight success throughout the state and to share positive impacts. And we'll be doing that through this webinar series, our attendance messaging that's going out from Megan as well. So keep looking for that, and feel free to shout yourselves out if you have some awesome wins that you want us to put in there as well. So just due to time, we are going to skip this breakout session. We can do a quick whole group thing, just talking about what attendance supports you are looking to help address and what strategies you have been trying to address chronic absenteeism in your LEA. So if we have like 3 people that want to do a quick shout out, and we'll be able to move into a Q&A.
Yeah, this actually is kind of pertaining to the breakout room in the first that we talked about. And I think those are some wonderful ideas. And I like the idea that Murray was utilizing more incentive-based structures to sort of attract students to want to come to school and solve those sort of like systems that are broken, like transportation. I'm just wondering, because these students do exist, so those students that have more systemic issues or the incentives aren't attractive enough, that's kind of the supports I'm also looking for, is that even smaller slice, right, of students that are still not being supported or reached out to. Is what are some effective strategies to reach out to those in particular?
So to me, it sounds like you're asking more about those like very high tier 3 students. And so right now, the main thing is going to be focusing on that tier 1, and then also focusing on community resources and trying to align families with those resources. There isn't necessarily that like firm hand that a lot of people are looking for right now across the state for those students and families that aren't engaging. But trying mentoring through Check and Connect, building up community resources and offering those, bringing families in to have those conversations and align them with resources. Through the Utah courts, we do also have truancy mediation that is willing to come to LEAs and help facilitate conversations with families. So there are a lot of other options, and for those individualized bases, it's a little bit easier just to reach out one-on-one, and we can send you some ideas that people are trying as well. So more general, just continue to develop community resources. And then as you get into those one-on-one students, feel free to reach out and we can kind of send some emails and correspond back and forth on some ideas and strategies that people are utilizing. Thanks, Drew. All right, and I'm seeing Kelly has a response, helpful to really finding out what the student and family values, where does education and higher education fall under their values, and then connect school and attendance back to those values. So bringing that family in and just trying to address those barriers. Let's see. Do you know why? So I see Nikki's got one. Do you know why, if students have been excused, parent reaches out, we know where they are still marked by the state as absent? Maybe I'm wrong, but it seems to me that the only recognized absence, the ones that don't count, are field trips. Wonder why we allow parents to excuse. So the parent excuse, the valid excuse is a tricky one. That is a very common question that we get. So in state code, we have listed out what we recognize as a valid excuse, with the caveat that LEAs can then determine also what they choose to utilize as a valid excuse. And so whatever your LEA is choosing is what we as the state also acknowledge. The state attendance data is tricky because we have like 30 different SIS systems that are being utilized across the board without consistent coding. And so that's why there's variations from your own SIS system to the UTREX reporting, just because then they have to take those attendances, and if every LEA has a different coding and a different set of what is validated as excused, the data team then has to pick through all of those data points to kind of compare apples and oranges, if you will. So it is a little different. If we are able to get a statewide SIS system, eventually that would help out with that. But right now that's not on the table. So it might still look wonky for a little while. It is something that we are aware of, though. I know that's not the greatest answer, Nikki, but hopefully it kind of clarifies a little. And Megan did drop the code in there about valid excuse. As you guys are looking at your policy and procedures, if you want to review that, it's up to the LEA on what you're going to be looking at as far as a valid excuse. All right, so I'm not going to read through all of this next section, but as we send out the slides, we did include quite a few resources that we wanted you all to have access to. So looking at your first steps as you're addressing attendance, making sure you have a team, looking at different self-assessments that can show you where your gaps are, so that you can start building your attendance systems up. We also have different resources around teaming, calendaring to look at attendance, and some sample attendance matrices. And then looking at community resource mapping, we have our DCFS and court referral documents in here, as well as examples of MTSS structures for attendance. And then some evidence-based practice links as well. And I did see somebody already emailed about Check and Connect, so I really appreciate that. Feel free to contact us to get some more information. I'll follow up soon. Some updated attendance legislation, which also we are coming into legislative cycles, so there will probably be more updates that need to come out after this comes. Surveying, this is a generic one that Attendance Works has created, but you can modify any of these. And scripts for phone calls that you're going to have for attendance as far as teachers go. And we are going to have the last little bit for questions, but before we send you guys out, we do have an exit survey. It's on this QR code. This will allow you to give feedback and help us create these attendance webinars to what is best suited for you, so you guys are getting the information you need. So please fill out this exit survey. And then
Did you say all those resources are on the website, or sorry, I misread those.
all of those resources are going to be shared out when we share out this slide deck. So you'll
Okay,
you'll
perfect.
get this slide deck shared out, and then all of that will be there as well. And while you guys are clicking over on this QR code, if anybody has any other questions, we can stay on for a little bit longer. We really do appreciate that you all hopped on for our first attendance webinar. And hopefully this is the first of many, and we're able to help continue to develop attendance systems across the state where we're connecting with each other and collaborating as well. And I think Megan, it looks like, dropped the hyperlink in for the survey.
Is your email the standard schools.utah.gov, Garrett?
Yes, I just wanted to make sure everybody got this. So here are our emails on the next slide.
Sorry, I don't know if I don't think you're sharing.
Let me retry. Are they up now? I'll just put it in the chat anyway. Oh, Megan beat me to it. Thanks.
Hey, Garrett, I just had a follow-up question.
Yeah, go ahead.
And this kind of was on the topic that we ended on with legislation changing and codes, being what they are in attendance systems. We'd actually just talked at a recent meeting about messaging to families and trying to clarify what like valid excuse means. And we looked at this page precisely, and there's a bit of vagueness. So I just want to clarify with you what you meant when you said, LEAs are, that USBE supports what LEA puts as far as maybe even limitations, unless I'm misunderstanding you, because it's got some pretty vague, requirements for valid, like mental or behavioral health, but it has no sort of like qualifiers or modifiers on that. And I get illness, right? And but then that even requires documentation by a medical professional. We're kind of stuck on the fence because while we want to be transparent and communicate these things, we really don't want to open up a sort of, I don't know, loophole, for lack of a better word, where parents will, instead of doing their parental duties and rights, will just sort of mental health call in, since it's one of the most vague expectations from the state in the law. So what would you recommend, or are these allowed to be coded and accepted by the state with as excused valid absences? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so it is tricky. Utah is definitely a very strong parent rights state, and we have local control, and that's where they have these valid excuses that you see in 13A, going down basically like 1 through 6, and then 7 says any other excuse established is valid by a local school board, charter school governing board, or school district.
Which is in addition to 1 through 6, right?
Yeah. Yep. And so those are things that are just generally acknowledged as these are valid excuses, and then anything else. So, I mean, this is a random example, but occasionally we get like, do we really excuse trips to Disneyland? And it's like, well, if you do, like that's not up to us. So,
gotcha.
Unfortunately, like there's that kind of creates that where we can't say everything, but these are just the generics, like an illness, either mental or physical, and mental or behavioral health of a school-age child, family death, approved activity, and they are left vague because that is in that parental right where
Sure.
they can say it's that. So unfortunately, it's
Gotcha.
hard to say like, yeah, you can ask them specifically what the mental health crisis is, but it's left vague intentionally for that parental right
Gotcha.
aspect.
Thank you for clarifying. I figured that that would be the case, and I do appreciate the clarification, and I think that makes sense.
Yeah, and I know it's not necessarily a clarification as well.
Well, it kind of is. I just wanted to clarify that it really was as open and intended to be as open, which is it's just the desire of USB. So right on. Okay, cool.
Yeah, and honestly, like through legislation as well. So it's
Yeah.
more created that way for a lot of these too. So
Yeah.
and then
All right.
I don't know that we've met previously. Where are you from, Drew?
So I'm actually VP over here at Venture Academy. It's a charter over in Marriott Slaterville, like South Ogden area.
Yeah.
And
I know where
so
Venture
yeah.
is. I live in Ogden, so I used to work at
Right on.
Greenwood. So definitely know Venture as well.
Yeah, cool. Actually, we're going to I think OPA tomorrow. But anyway, yeah, it's a new position. I was teaching over in Davis, California for like close to a decade, but looking to expand. So trying to clarify. And you're right. I think the expectations are very unique here, and I just want to get a better understanding of what they are and how I can support. So thank you.
Yeah, definitely. Nice to meet you.